ready to go. All right, so welcome this morning to our class meeting. And so I posted an announcement about the blood drive, so that's there. And today at 1 o'clock, I will do how to do the ABG. So I'll go through the ABG packet. And I'm hoping that I can use the same Zoom ID for this. I don't know. If I end up having to use a different Zoom ID, then I'll make sure that I send that to you just prior to the meeting starting. So check your inbox in Canvas to see if there's an alternate meeting ID number for this afternoon's class. So it's not, well, none of these are obligatory. You don't have to be here. But it's kind of nice to be, especially with ABGs, to be live while I'm teaching it to you, because it can be complicated in the beginning. At the end, it'll be super easy and you'll just go, I don't even know what was hard about this before. But it's kick butt hard to begin with. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is the hardest thing that you will do in 202, is ABGs. But you have to do them all the time in the nursing program. And why does the end of my nose, I look like Rudolph. I don't know where to get, that's a little better. But seriously, it's just this little red circle right here. Oh, I hate that. Oh, well, anyway. Let's sit back here. I need a new background. All right. So anyway, like I said, if it's a new meeting ID number, then I will be sending that to you just prior to the meeting today. So let's go ahead and keep moving on with, one other thing. I haven't put the quiz on yet. That's due next Tuesday. So just know that it'll be there, but not yet. Okay, so there's that. Just looking at notes to myself. Okay, so let me find what we're doing today. And can someone remind me where we left off? Extracellular filtration for your information, glomerular filtration.
Synthetic control.
The chart, we looked at that, reabsorption, control, myogenic, tubular, glomerular feedback, sympathetic control, renin-angiotensin. Is that where we left off?
We finished, yeah, at sympathetic control, so oh.
I know you're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
Let me see.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Bryce, I'll answer your question in a minute. Okay, go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, so we finished.
I still can't hear you.
I don't know what I did.
I don't know. Maybe you could sign language it for me.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, let me look in chat. Nobody knows where we were. Okay,
I know.
So, because I'm still, I don't know.
Okay, hold on.
Please show me in your notes. Nicole, just hold up your notes and show me where we went to. I can't see that. I seriously can't even read that. I can't even read that, so I don't even know. We'll just go where I think I want to go to, and you guys will just go. Okay, Bryce asked, in case you didn't see in the chat, are you going back over the quizzes and giving us credit for ones marked wrong? And then I won't read the rest of what she said. Yes, I put an announcement in there, and I'm just going to say, don't ask me again. No offense, Bryce, but yes, I do. I have not yet been through anything. Okay, renin-angiotensin mechanism. That's what I thought. That's where I thought we were. But yes, I do go over everything. Just like I said, I have spent so much time. I can't even tell you in the past 3 weeks, putting videos on, moving things around, opening things up, and changing due dates. And to be honest, I am so sick of it. I can't even stand it. But I do it for you because I love you and I don't want to put a guilt trip on you or nothing like that. But hey, I'm a mom and that's all, you know, moms do that, whether we like it or not. No, Bryce, don't even. I just, you know, you're the sacrificial lamb this morning. Sorry. You know, it's sometimes it just happens. You just got to be the one this morning. I love you, Bryce. You know, you're my favorite Bryce ever, ever. I don't even know. Okay. I'm gonna vent, you guys. I have nobody to vent to. So sorry that, and it absolutely not your fault or nothing. It's just whole COVID-19 and just, and oh, you know what ticks me off worse than anything? No, because this is being recorded, so I'm not even gonna say. I'm just keep it to myself. Okay. So here we go. Renin-angiotensin mechanism. So I'm gonna go back. Okay, I want to look at this. You don't see anything yet because I'm not, there we go. All right, so, oh, let's get out of that. Okay, so let's just remember, you know what? Let's go all the way back to the chart. Okay, I feel better about this. So because we're in parasympathetic stimulation, I've said this before, we are typically in a low blood pressure situation. And so our body is very attuned to making sure that everything that's related to blood pressure, so glomerular filtration rate, how much blood's getting to your brain, how much oxygen's getting to your muscles, all of that kind of stuff is very tightly regulated. And so because we want to tightly regulate that, we're going to have multiple levels of regulation. So let's see. I thought I muted everybody. So Julia, you may want to check to make sure. Let me just go here really quick and check my mute all. Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, okay, so since we're in sympathetic or parasympathetic stimulation, 90% of our day, and we want to make sure that everything is functioning properly. We have these 4 mechanisms for maintaining blood pressure. So we have the intrinsic things that are going to happen nephron by nephron. Okay, so which is amazing. Isn't that just cool that each one of your million nephrons has the ability to regulate itself? Okay, so we're going to do that through the blood coming in to the afferent arteriole through myogenic mechanism. We're going to vasoconstrict. Okay, so remember, we're looking at low blood pressure here, but really quickly, I'm talking about what are we going to do in a high blood pressure situation. So when we push against vascular smooth muscle, then we're going to vasoconstrict to reduce the flow into the glomerulus to lower the hydrostatic pressure of the glomerulus, which will lower the NFP, which will lower the GFR. But as it shows in this diagram, if the blood pressure is too low, so if our GFR is too low, NFP is too low, hydrostatic pressure is too low, so we need to increase the amount of blood that's traveling to the glomerulus through the afferent arteriole. So we will vasodilate the afferent arteriole, like it says right there, to increase the amount of flow going into the glomeruli. Tubuloglomerular mechanism, that's when we're going to use the chemoreceptors in the macula densa. We're going to detect the sodium chloride levels within the filtrate. If we have low sodium chloride levels, then that means we're not filtering well enough. And so we need to release that vasoactive chemical that will cause vasodilation to take place. We saw, though, in the packet before, when there was too much, then when there was too much sodium chloride in the filtrate, that meant our GFR was too high. So the macula densa sent a vasoconstrictor to reduce the afferent arterial diameter even more. Okay, so now we're going to go outside of the kidney. So outside of the kidney, we can go to our brain and we can go to the medulla. The baroreceptors are going to check, obviously, to see if blood pressure is too high, blood pressure is too low. So in the case of too low blood pressure, then we're going to go activate the sympathetic nervous system. That will then act on systemic blood vessels and will also stimulate the release of renin from the juxtaglomerular cells. We did that yesterday when we were looking at sympathetic control in fluid and water homeostasis. So, so two things: sympathetic nervous system is going to vasoconstrict here, and then we're going to cause renin release. So if we go past all of that, okay, so when no sympathetic stimulation is occurring, renal vessels are maximally dilated, kidney takes care of itself through intrinsic control. So we're going to regulate GFR through myogenic mechanism, tubuloglomerular mechanism. But during times of stress, blood's going to be shunted away from the kidneys. We're going to inhibit filtration so we can preserve any water that might still be in our bloodstream. And then we're also going to trigger the release of renin, which probably should put in there. You might want to add that, stimulate renin release. Okay, so now we're going to talk about specifically about what's going to happen when we release renin. So any time, and I mean any time that we are in sympathetic, no, any time that we are in a low blood pressure situation, renin is going to get released. Today's the 8th, right? Okay, sweet. All right, so if we have low blood pressure, then of course we're going to end up having a low GFR. So we want to put that back. So we're going to release renin. So the problem with renin is that it is going to affect your entire body. Every system in your body, every tissue bed, everything is going to be affected by renin. So this is your last ditch effort to try to take care of everything, to try to take care of this low blood pressure situation. And because we're going to be secreting when our blood pressure drops consistently, then we have this long-term maintenance of blood pressure. So renin is in control, well, the kidney, but through the renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, so the RAAS, we are going to be able to long-term regulate. So when we were doing blood pressure before and we were looking at all those chemicals and Bainbridge reflex and baroreceptors and all that kind of stuff that was trying to regulate our blood pressure, remember that those were all short-term blood pressure mechanisms. So that was running up the stairs, running away from the Rottweiler, getting up out of your chair. All of those things are short-term, but we're looking at long-term, day-to-day, year-to-year, whatever, maintenance of your blood pressure during your lifetime. Okay, so here we go. So much. So hang on, here we go. So renin from the JG cells, juxtaglomerular cells, causes ultimately the production of angiotensin II, a potent vasoconstrictor. So that's our first thing, our first characteristic about angiotensin II, potent vasoconstrictor. Whoops. That causes our mean arterial pressure to rise. And so remember, mean arterial pressure is that pressure that delivers blood to your capillary beds. Okay, also stimulates the release of aldosterone. All right, so remember, this is the RAAS. Okay, so renin, angiotensin II, aldosterone system. So what did we looked at that yesterday? The aldosterone goes to the distal convoluted tubule and cortical collecting duct, stimulates the insertion of sodium potassium pumps in the basolateral membrane. That's going to pump the sodium into the interstitial fluid and then into the peritubular capillaries, and then on the front end, on the luminal side of the cuboidal cells, then the sodium will just flow in passively. Okay. Now, here is another thing why renin causes an increase in blood pressure. Okay, is because water follows sodium. So if I increase my my blood sodium level, my plasma sodium level, the water that's in my interstitial fluid is going to flow back into my bloodstream. So it's not going to come out of the tubule yet, because in order to reclaim water from your urine, somebody tell me which hormone do you need? So in order to take water out of your urine, what hormone do we absolutely have to have? Million billion extra credit points.
ADH?
Seriously? Come on, you guys. What hormone? What is it? Aldosterone. We always say what with it? Somebody tell me.
Can you hear any of us?
Nicole that's mute today. Okay, I'm not going on until somebody tells me. Okay, let me look and see. Yeah, I'm a butt, but I don't care. Yay, thanks, Olivia. Woo, million billion extra credit points for you today. Yes, ADH. Okay, so remember that you can have all the aldosterone that you want. Oh, you're all talking to me and I can't hear you? Oh, crap, friends. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. No. You know what? My speakers are still in the other room. That's all my fault. Oh, no, they're not. They're still right here. Hang on. Okay, somebody say something. Maybe they're not plugged in. Hang on. No, my speakers are here. What the freak? Oh, that's so lame. I don't even understand. Oh, that's because they're doing my wrong speakers. Okay, now somebody say something. No. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yay! When I plug my speakers back in, it defaulted to not speakers I don't have. So yeah, Olivia, you stole someone's million billion extra credit points. Okay. Oh,
That's what I was trying to say earlier about Julia. She was trying to answer you too, and you couldn't hear her either. And I was like, maybe something's wrong.
something is wrong. Yeah. So I found my speakers finally. They were here. They were like super far back. So I thought they were still in the other room from yesterday afternoon. No, I plugged them back in. But yeah, it defaulted to speakers I don't have when I plugged them in. So, oh, Lord. Take the wheel, Jesus. I just can't do this by myself anymore. Oh, my gosh. Okay. All right. So now we're all better. I'm going to just spread out the million billion extra credit points to everybody in attendance today. Okay. So ADH, which we're going to get to in just a minute. Okay. So now what else? So we said angiotensin 2 is a vasoconstrictor. So here is what it's also going to vasoconstrict: the efferent arteriole, not the afferent arteriole though. Okay, so it must not be able to react. And I know I've tried to look it up before to see if maybe the afferent arteriole doesn't have receptors to angiotensin 2, but I can't remember what I found. But efferent arteriole. Okay, so why would we want, so I want somebody to answer this. Why would we want the efferent arteriole to vasoconstrict with angiotensin 2 and not the afferent? Anybody got a clue?
Is it to build up the back pressure?
Yes, it is exactly right. So we want to build up that back pressure. So by vasoconstricting the efferent arteriole, now you have less blood leaving, more blood staying, and then that will also cause your HPG to go up. Just like it says right there, more blood stays in the glomerulus. Very good. And you know what? I like to have you guys explain this, because even though it says it right there in the notes, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't even know. What does that mean? More blood stays in the glomerulus. So that's why, even though you can read it right there, it's good to make sure you get the, your comprehension. Okay. So what else what have we got so far? Oh, remember yesterday I said, yes, Trevor, higher pressure. Perfect. Okay, so remember I said yesterday there were 5 things, and then I said 4, but there are 5 things that angiotensin does, angiotensin 2 does. Okay, so 1, we got the vasoconstrictor. Okay, so that's item number 1. Okay, number 2, the release of aldosterone. Okay, number 3, let's vasoconstrict the efferent arteriole, sorry. Okay, number 4, look at this. Now, oh yeah, that makes total sense, right? Because if you're going to be stimulating the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct to reabsorb sodium, what would you want those 2 areas to also reabsorb? We want them to reabsorb water. So just like you said, yay for a million billion extra credit points, we need to have ADH acting in those same 2 areas. So distal convoluted tubule, cortical collecting duct will be stimulated to increase the number of aquaporins now in the luminal side, actually on the front side of the cells, so that they will take in more water as that sodium is being pumped to the outside and sodium flowing in. Then we need aquaporins on the luminal side, on the front side of the membrane or the cell to reabsorb that water. Okay, that's 4 things. Whoops. And the 5th thing is this right here. Angiotensin 2 will also stimulate the thirst center in the hypothalamus to make us thirsty. So that, oh, look at that. What a super great multiple choice question, right? Which of the following things is not a mechanism by which angiotensin 2 raises blood pressure? Okay, so I seriously, because that's one of my favorite questions that I ever put on a test. So Siri just listening to me. Okay, so so make sure you know that, highlight that, star that, look at all 5 of those things that it does, and say Mrs. G is going to ask us a question about that, or maybe 2 questions about this on the next exam. Okay, so moving on, now that it took 20 minutes to be normal again, here we go. All right, so let's do this really quick, because I just want to make sure you know all of the steps. It was in the packet, but probably not as great in the packet as I would like. So here we're going to do. So we're going to go renin stimulates angiotensinogen to, hang on, my text box isn't long enough. Angiotensinogen to become oh my heavens, angiotensin 1. Okay, so when renin is released, so first of all, angiotensinogen, where is it coming from? It's made by the liver. So remember, most of your plasma proteins are made by your liver. Really, the only plasma proteins to speak of that are not made by the liver are antibodies. Basically, everything else is made by the liver. So then, angiotensin 1 is converted to Ang2 in the lungs with not ACHE, ACE, which I'm not going to type out, but angiotensin converting enzyme. Okay, so make sure you know those steps there. So renin released from the JG cells acts on angiotensinogen. So it's always floating around in your bloodstream. It's not going to, renin is not going to activate the release of angiotensinogen. It's just going to activate the conversion, or catalyze the conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1, and then angiotensin converting enzyme will then allow it to be converted to angiotensin 2. Okay. All right, so let's talk more specifically about tubular reabsorption. So what's going on in the proximal convoluted tubule? So remember, by the time the filtrate passes through the proximal convoluted tubule, 65% of the filtrate has been reabsorbed, including 100% of the glucose and proteins or amino acids. So we have both passive and active transport processes going on. And note that since our total blood volume is filtered into the tubules every 45 minutes, if our plasma wasn't reabsorbed, it would drain away as urine very rapidly, and we would dehydrate in no time. Okay, so don't worry about the two kinds of transport. So I'm not going to distinguish between paracellular and transcellular. Just know these right here. Let me make little circles. Okay, so just know which things are primary active transport and which are passive. So obviously, water is passive. There is never, and I mean never, ever a case in your body where water moves by active transport. There are no water pumps in your body. And so this is why your kidneys are so vital to fluid homeostasis, is because your kidneys are going to regulate your electrolyte levels within your body. And how do we then move water from one place to another? Well, it's all solute concentration. It's all depending on what's the osmolarity of your tissues in places. So when we looked at our contractions and expansions yesterday, it was all the osmolarities that made water go different places. So how concentrated your solutions are is what's going to determine where water goes. So if I need water to go somewhere else, then my body needs to make sure that solutes are in that place in order for the water to move to that area. And our kidneys are what really regulate that, our electrolyte balance in our body. Okay, so water is always, 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 always passive transport. Okay, then we have this primary active transport that happens right here. Okay, this is the sodium potassium pump. Okay, so remember we put those sodium potassium pumps in here, and then they pump the sodium into the interstitial space, and then it just moves passively into, we don't pump into the tubule either. I don't like how they should have just made red to here and then blue on into here. So sodium potassium pumps, and then we're going to have secondary active transport, which we'll look at here in just a minute. Okay, so water is always passive, but some solutes will go passively and some solutes will go actively. Okay. All right, so now let's take a look at how, okay, so see, they did this right because they broke up the arrows. All right, so this is such a good diagram to really show exactly how everything is happening. Okay, so let's see, where do we want to start? Well, let's always start with sodium because that's what is always going to happen. Okay, so sodium, first of all, this is the first step right here. I need a brighter color. Let's do green. Okay, so step number one is this step right here. Okay, so number one is the active transport of sodium into the interstitial fluid. Okay, and then of course, because you have the active transport of sodium into the interstitial fluid using the sodium potassium pump, you're going to pump the potassium back into the cell. But here is genius. This is absolutely fantastic. Okay, look at, have a little channel right here. This little channel right here. Look at what the potassium's doing. It's just going this way, and then we pump it in, and it flows back out, and we pump it in, and it flows back out, and we pump it in. And why do we want to do that? Because we're focused on the sodium right here. And if you don't have 2 potassium, and we saw this a long time ago, last semester when you do Physio X1, no, yes. Physio X1 with active transport, if you only have sodium in your solution, sodium potassium pump won't work. You could have all the sodium you want and all the ATP, but if you do not have potassium, then the pump doesn't work. So because we need to pump the sodium out into here to increase, so here I want to increase the osmolarity. And here's a nice thing to think about with osmolarity. When we increase it, it becomes more concentrated, so it's more likely osmosis will happen in that space. So you might want to make that connection with osmolarity. So increasing osmolarity means it's more concentrated solution and more osmosis will happen in that direction. Okay, and that's what we want. Because why do we want this super concentrated? Because we need to reabsorb water. So water will come in because the interstitial fluid is so concentrated, because it has a high osmolarity out here. So then water will just flow passively on and into the peritubular capillary. Okay, now look at this sodium. Some of that sodium that we're pumping into here, why do we have to keep pumping it? Because as I raise the osmolarity here, now we're looking at sodium concentration, not water concentration, but we're looking at sodium concentration. I have lots right here. So it's just going to passively flow into my capillaries. But that's what I want. I do want to reabsorb sodium as well. I don't want to just pump it into the interstitial fluid. I need it to go into my bloodstream as well. So it's going to go in passively right here. And then because I'm pumping it out, this means that I have low sodium here, but I have high sodium here. So now it's just going to go passively in here. Now, why do I want that passive increase of sodium into the cell, or movement from the high concentration in the lumen to inside of the cell? Because I need to drive this secondary active transport. Okay, so without this pump right here, so this is a co-transporter, so this is a sodium glucose or sodium amino acid co-transporter. Without sodium, that sodium that's up here on the top, the glucose would never get reabsorbed. Okay, so we're pumping the sodium into the cell, and it is active transport. We're pumping the amino acids and ions and vitamins. And why are we pumping them? Because we want all of them in here. So we want to increase the concentration. We want to take all of this out. How can you take all of it out once you get to equilibrium, right? Once you get to equilibrium, then movement's going to stop. So I've got to pump the rest. So to reabsorb all the glucose, amino acids, and everything that I want to take out of the filtrate, I have to pump it into my cell with my sodium co-transporter right here. So then the concentration of these things will rise, and then they'll just flow passively inside of there. Urea and any fat-soluble substances that were going to go right through the cell membrane, boom, they just go right on through from high to low. Same with water, same with chloride, and then we have some potassium that will get reabsorbed to go into the cells so that we can have some sodium or some potassium go in here, but we don't want a lot. Mostly we just want it in this little cycle. And this picture right here just shows one cell. This is happening in every single cell in the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay. All right, I know that's quite complicated, so make sure you look at that multiple times and then let me know if you have any issues with that, any problems, because no, I know it took me a while to really figure out exactly what was going on when I was learning about it the first time. Okay. Is that all of that? Okay. All right, so let's look in the notes. So sodium reabsorption is active transport on the basolateral membrane. So it puts it into the interstitial space, so that's on the back side. And then sodium will diffuse into, you know what, let's put that in here. Let's put, so that we know exactly where this is happening. Okay, so on the basolateral side. Okay, so this sodium potassium pumps on the basolateral membrane, and then this is on the luminal membrane, on the luminal side. Oops. Okay, so this is just going to be passive diffusion on the luminal side, but this is going to be active transport on the basolateral side. Okay, and then we got, so then it will just go into the, diffuse also into the peritubular capillaries on the let's put that, diffuses into the cells. And let me fix that. Oops, let me get out of here. It won't let me fix it. Okay, so make sure that you know that we're diffusing in two places. We're going to diffuse on the luminal side like I had there, and then we're going to diffuse into the paratubular capillaries. I should make that a little more clear. And so water gets reabsorbed. Okay, then here's the nutrients carried into the capillaries by co-transport using the same carriers as sodium. So we got that. Any other cations also co-transport with sodium. Anions will just be passive transport because we're making the cells so positive with the sodium coming in that the negatively charged like chloride will just go in. Water, we got that. Urea and lipid soluble materials will just go in through passive diffusion. Now here's a crazy thing, you guys. We need urea to help with the what's going to happen in the loop of Henle. So we'll talk about that on Friday. But we need to reabsorb some urea. So even though we get rid of urea, it's a waste product, we still reabsorb about half of the urea that we filter. And so that's kind of weird, but it is what it is. So that's why we have to keep filtering so many times. It's like half-lives. I'm only taking out half of the urea each time. So I have to keep filtering it and filtering it, filtering, and I keep producing it over and over again. So I never really get rid of all my urea because of the fact that I am reabsorbing it as well. But like I said, we'll talk more about that when we get to the loop of Henle on Friday. Okay, and then small proteins that might have escaped into the filtrate can actually be endocytized. So they will be engulfed by the cell membrane, and then they'll be broken down into amino acids for absorption in the cells themselves. Okay, so this just goes through and gives you all the information, and then where things happen. So here's proximal convoluted tubule and what we just went through. Here is loop of Henle, which we'll go over, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct, but we're going to go through those in the notes. But this is nice that we have you have those tables there. Okay, so remember, so let me draw a little loop of Henle. All right. Okay, so this is our thin descending. Oh, that could be put thin. And then this is our thick. We abbreviate it the tau. Thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. So this is coming up this way. And actually that gets thicker a little bit lower down here, but whatever. Okay, so let's review what comes out on the thin descending side is water. When we looked at the countercurrent countercurrent mechanism, or the countercurrent exchanger, that's what I was trying to say both at the same time. Okay, so water comes out, sodium chloride stays inside. So by the time it gets down here, we're super high osmolarity. Okay, right down there at the bottom. All right, on the other side, though, we're going to actively pump out sodium chloride and magnesium. And we actually call them the sodium potassium 2 chloride pumps channels, sodium potassium 2 chloride, because for every sodium and potassium 2 chloride go. But that makes sense, right, friends? Why for every sodium and potassium that I pump to the interstitial fluid, why would I have to pump 2 chlorines or chlorides? Million billion extra credit points. Yeah, yay, Macy. Exactly. From what we learned yesterday, our charges have to balance. I'm absorbing, well, not absorbing, but I'm pumping 2 cations. So then I have to take 2 anions with it. Woo! So proud of you. Okay, We will also have calcium and magnesium transport in the ascending limb, coming out, okay? And then in the distal convoluted tubule, remember sodium reabsorption has to be the active transport in the presence of aldosterone. Remember, friends, that in the absence of aldosterone, we will not have sodium reabsorption at the distal convoluted tubule, okay? So that's what's happening in general. We're going to talk a lot more about the loop of Henle on Friday. All right. Okay, so distal convoluted tubule, just one more time. Okay, most reabsorption from this point on depends on the needs of the body and will be regulated by hormones. Okay, so if I need more water, then I'll release ADH. If I need more sodium, then I'll release aldosterone. Or let's put a little note here. Too much potassium in the bloodstream can also cause aldosterone release to secrete K potassium while reabsorbing sodium. Okay, so remember that you can't have a lot of potassium in your bloodstream. Remember that your potassium levels are found intracellularly. That's where we want them to be high. So if I have potassium extracellularly, if I have hyperkalemia, okay, whoops, kalemia. All right, so that's excessive potassium. Think about what's going to happen if I have too much potassium on the outside of my cell. Will the potassium want to diffuse out, to repolarize? No. Okay, so if I have too much potassium on the inside, what does that do to my resting membrane potential? It raises my resting membrane potential. And by definition, what is a rise in membrane potential? It's depolarization or hypopolarization. So if I have hyperkalemia, this is how I always remember it. Hyperkalemia means hypopolarized. So the cells will fire spontaneously. You'll get spastic paralysis in your muscles because they'll depolarize, but they won't repolarize. Your heart will get sent into a weird arrhythmia, and then you'll get ectopic foci, and you can go into fibrillation, and it's just bad. Bad. So we don't want hyperkalemia. And so aldosterone will also stimulate the secretion of potassium as it's reabsorbing sodium. So that's a super good relationship to remember right there. All right, I think we're just about done for today, what I want to do today. Oh, this is beautiful. This is like the penultimate, almost. Actually, it's the ultimate chart, not penultimate. Here's what's happening at every place in the processes that are going on. So look at this. I have sodium being removed from the proximal convoluted tubule by active transport. I have chloride by passive. I have water by passive, potassium by passive. Some drugs. Oh, look at what's happening right here. Let me circle that. What's happening right here? Okay, what do we do? So what process is happening right there? Million billion extra credit points. Nobody knows. Okay, what are the three processes that happen in the kidney? What are the three? Did you all leave? Okay, so filtration is one, but that's not what's happening there. What's the second one?
And secretion.
Reabsorption. Okay, and then what was the last one again? Secretion. Okay, so what is happening with that one right there?
Secretion?
Secretion. Yeah, here's our first super excellent example of secretion going on. So we're trying to get rid of some material that we have that's in the bloodstream, because where do these arrows end up? Okay, all of these arrows that are coming out of the tubule, all of this stuff ends up in the peritubular capillaries. But look at what this one's doing. It's leaving the peritubular capillaries and going back into the tubule. And remember, by definition, that's what secretion is. Because remember, with the 3, with filtration, it's capillaries to tubule. Reabsorption is tubule to capillaries. Secretion is capillaries to tubule. So that's what's going on right here. And so that's why we do random drug testing when, you know, so for some jobs, for athletes, whatever, whoever needs to be tested for illegal drug use, is because we're secreting those metabolites back into our kidney tubules to get rid of them. Okay, so beautiful example of secretion going on right there. Hey, look at, what is that? Yeah, they're hydrogen ions, but what's going on there?
They're being secreted as well?
They are also being secreted, okay? So we want to get rid of our potassium ion or sodium, no, hydrogen ions, because why? Our kidneys are also responsible for what?
Acid-base balance.
Yes, acid-base balance, perfect. Oh, you guys, I love you so much. Okay, so this is one way that how we regulate, how the kidney will regulate pH of our blood, because this little guy right here is being secreted with a sodium hydrogen ion antiport. So what do you think is happening in an antiport? As sodium comes out, what does hydrogen do? It goes in, because they go in opposite directions. So as we absorb sodium, we pump out hydrogen ions. Beautiful thing. Okay, so let's just finish up this picture and then we'll be done for today. So now we're going to go into the distal, nope, we're going to go into the descending limb of the loop of Henle. Thin descending limb, look at that. The only thing that's going to leave is water. Then we go to the ascending limb. Now, before it thins out, before it thickens, sodium and chloride leave passively. Okay, they're just regular diffusion. But then we're going to, when we get up into the thick ascending limb, look at that. There are our sodium potassium 2 chloride channels right there. Okay, then we have the distal convoluted tubule. So here are some more secretion that's going to go on right here. Okay, and then this is going to happen in the presence of aldosterone. And then, oh my goodness, look at, they have it in medullary collecting duct, but this is actually going to happen in the cortical collecting duct. So I don't know. Well, actually, it's kind of a combination of both. What's happening in here is what happens up here and what happens down here. So there's a ton of things, but we will look at those on Friday, because what happens in the collecting duct is what's going to influence what it's like out here. And if we look at what is the interstitial fluid out here in the outer medulla versus the inner medulla, oh, look at what's happening in the color. It's like a beautiful ombre, right? So here, up here in the cortex, means that it's isotonic, okay, because we're going to talk more about that on Friday. But look at what's happening in the concentration as we descend down into the medulla. The interstitial fluid is getting much more concentrated. And so not only does the loop of Henle have something to do with that, but the collecting duct does as well. So we're going to save that excitement for Friday. And so there's that. So that's all I have for today. Sorry, it was a weird day already, but hopefully I'm working real hard at gaining control of my life and making sure that things are not too crazy like they've been. And so anyway, that's all for today. If you want to come and watch how to do ABGs today, that's fabulous. Or you can watch the video. If you watch the video, well, either time, if you come to the live meeting or you watch the video, make sure you bring the ABG packet with you. It's in is it, Nicole, is it in the module or did I put in an announcement? It's in the module?
The
'Cause
modules.
Okay, because I try to put everything in the module. The live is at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, because I got a class at 11 and then I need some time to regroup and grade some things. And then, so yeah, Trevor, you're fine. Just watch the video. But I will be doing stuff live again on ABGs. When we get to it in the lecture notes, we're going to have probably one day devoted just to personal interaction on ABG. So I'll have you do problems on your own whiteboard, and then you'll share it with everybody, and then we'll say, yeah, you're doing it right, or no, you're doing it wrong. That's one of my favorite parts, is that you guys all come up to the board and y'all work a ABG together, and without me, I just stand there. Okay.
It's at the very bottom of section 5 in the modules.
Okay, so go to all the way to the bottom of the module. Okay, all right, other than that, I got nothing. So you're very welcome, and I will see you at 1 o'clock, or I will see you Friday at 9. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks, Miss G. Bye.
Bye.